Hello again, welcome everyone. I'm Jamerican Youth, and in this video, I'll be talking to Andre James. Andre is a Jamaican in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He owns a business in Sao Paulo, and we will be talking about his background in Jamaica and how he got to Brazil to now being a business owner in this country. I was fortunate enough to meet him while I was in Sao Paulo, and we got to know each other a little bit. Andre has lived in Brazil for 11 years. And so he has a wealth of experience in Brazil. Before we start our conversation, I want to ask you to hit the subscribe button. My goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and you can help us get there. We can't do it without you, so is going to be important. So help a brother out and subscribe. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get to our conversation. Andre, what going?
Just trying to survive and make the best of this whole pandemic situation. There's nothing to do but just take a day at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the pandemic has really, it kind of really make things difficult for everybody, but
right.
Just hanging in there. So, I'm so excited to talk to you about this.
Right.
So let's get to it. Tell us about your background in Jamaica. Which part of Jamaica you come from? Where you go to school and so on.
Right. All right. So originally, I was born in Kingston. I was born at the what's the name of that hospital again? That's in Crossroads.
Children? No.
Not all.
Not all hospital, yeah.
Right. Not all hospital.
Oh, that's where I was born too.
Right, for real? Yeah. So I was born in at Not All Hospital, and born and raised in Waltham Park. Moved to Spanish Town for a while, then moved back to Waltham Park, and been there ever since. Up until obviously, my time living in Jamaica. That was where my time was. Waltham Park, Spanish Town.
Okay. And where did you go to school?
I went to Campion College.
Campion College.
Right.
Cool. Definitely, man. I have quite a few friends that went to Campion, actually.
Right. Yeah, Campion is a good school. Can't really complain about the education that I received. Have issues and stuff as with any other educational organization, but I don't really have anything really negative to say about.
Campion is definitely one of the top high schools in Jamaica for sure.
Right. So
tell us how you got in Brazil. What brought you to Brazil?
Wow. All right. So I ended up coming to Brazil on a scholarship, right? Given through the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right? Through the Brazilian Embassy in Kingston. So, the program is called PEC-G, right? And, the Brazilian Embassy, they offer this scholarship or this opportunity, right? To people from, countries that are economically less developed than Brazil. So we're talking about the Caribbean, we're talking about other places in South America, in Africa. And they offer these opportunities for us to study in the public universities that they have here in Brazil. The reason why I didn't say scholarship, right? Or I corrected myself, I said opportunities, because in Brazil, public universities are not paid for. They're paid for out of taxes, right? So students don't pay for their education as long as you're in a public university, right? So it's not necessarily a scholarship. They just afforded us the opportunity or the privilege to, study in their school system. So I came here on a scholarship, on an opportunity, study dentistry. So yeah.
Wow. So you didn't even have to pay like a international student fee or anything like that?
No, there's no fees. Like in our brain, I keep saying scholarship because from all reality, like not paying for your education for scholarship.
Scholarship, right.
Again, I get confused, especially when I speak in English, right? But it's The scholarship is an opportunity to study in their public school system. So we didn't have to pay for anything. All we had to do was pay for living expenses, right? But the education itself, we didn't have to pay for that. And as I said, in Brazil, university education is viewed as a human right or a Brazilian right. So if you're able to get into one of these institutions, you don't pay out of pocket. Obviously, nothing's free. It comes from taxes, but the students don't have to pay, you know? So yeah.
Awesome. That's pretty good.
Right. And they opened up that opportunity to Jamaicans like myself, you know, which I think is pretty neat, you know? It's a good thing. Right.
I hope more Jamaicans will take advantage of that, because education is not easy.
Yeah. It's funny because not all the Jamaicans view South America or Brazil as a place of opportunities. And I mean, I understand why, because obviously you have the language barrier. Myself, I was very ignorant to, you know, what was happening in South America, especially in countries like Brazil. Obviously, we know the basics like, you know, Brazilians are good in football. You know, occasionally you'll hear the word Rio de Janeiro, stuff like that. But, you know, we don't really know what's happening here. Because as I said, the language barrier, but there are a lot of great opportunities here to study, you know, to do business. So I really do think that Jamaicans, as well as people from the Caribbean in general, should, you know, take some time out and give it a look. You know what I mean?
Right. And then especially because most of what we hear about is in Jamaica and the Caribbean is either the USA, Canada, or England. So
right.
We kind of closed off to all of these other wonderful opportunities.
Right. Which I think, you know, I think that is definitely a mistake that we make on our part. You know, especially sometimes when it comes down to like even like you know, international policies and stuff like that. I think there are regions, for example, South America is huge. You know, Brazil has the 5th largest population in the world, and that's just Brazil alone. You know what I mean? So, you know, the region is a big region. There's a lot of opportunities, as I said, for trade and cultural exchange, you know, that I think, you know, should be exploited a bit more on the side of, you know, West Indians and Jamaicans.
And you get the added benefit of learning another language too.
Yeah. You get bilingual. I'll tell you this, like my world has completely changed ever since, you know, learning Portuguese. You know, it's almost as like every language has like we all share the same globe, the same world, but every language lives in their own world, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, when you learn about the language, you have access to information that otherwise you wouldn't have access to.
So how did you find out about this opportunity? I know it came from the foreign embassy in the Brazilian foreign embassy.
The Brazilian embassy, right.
But how did you find out about it?
Listen, it was completely by chance. I came to Brazil by chance, literally. I was on the veranda of my aunt, right? And she's one of the people that read the newspaper from back to front, right? And she basically saw like an ad, like a very small ad in the newspaper, like study in Brazil. I remember her saying that to me, like, "Oh, Andre, what do you think about studying in Brazil?" And I kid you not, like I laughed so hard. Like yo, my laugh. And I was like, "Brazil, you're mad that far." You know, it reached a point where I was studying in Jamaica, you know, at university at the time, and I didn't really feel very accomplished, if that makes sense. And I was like, you know what? Let me see what's going on this side of the world. So I went to the embassy, signed up, got the scholarship, and now I'm here.
Awesome.
Right.
And that could help a lot of Jamaicans.
Right.
This information going on. So what was your studies like in Brazil? Like, first of all, tell us, you're fresh from Jamaica, you come to Brazil.
Right.
What were your initial thoughts about what Brazil is going to be?
I mean, so I think one of the biggest things is that, like, you know, as I said, once again, language barrier. So like we don't get information. We don't get a lot of verbal information. We get a lot of visuals, right? And obviously, you know, one of the things that the Brazilian government does, they send out a lot of visuals of Rio de Janeiro, right? To attract more tourism, right? And so when I came to Brazil, I came here with that image in my mind. You know, obviously Brazil sends out a lot of imagery about football. You know, the Brazilian players, they're highly skilled. You know, even at a young age, it's really amazing. You know, they're highly skilled. So that's the imagery that we get, right? So when I came to Brazil in 2010, right? When I came to Brazil in 2010, I was very shocked because I moved to Brasilia, which is the capital, which is land. There's no beaches, you know, none of that. No Copacabana, none of that. So I really got, and I'm happy for this, but I got a dose of reality, if that makes sense. So I went to a city, the capital, where everyone, you know, is like 9-to-5 workers, you know, a lot of people have government jobs. So it was a completely different vibe than, you know, what I was shown before. And I'm very happy that happened because it broke a lot of stereotypes from the beginning, you know. So by the time I moved to Sao Paulo, which was in 2011, I already had, I was more open to learning new things. And Sao Paulo was another shock because Sao Paulo is not the stereotypical Brazilian imagery that you'll see, you know, because here you have high rises, it's a really big city, it's really urban, you know. So yeah, it was completely different. What else? I studied at University of Sao Paulo, right, which is the best university in the region. You know, if I'm not mistaken, Latin America. I studied dentistry, right, and I'm not sure about where we're at on the list right now. But when I was there, we used to fluctuate between number 1 and number 5. So very good institution. So yeah, Brazilians were very receptive. You know, I have no complaints when it comes on to, you know, that. Now, studying, their system is a bit different from ours. You know, I think that in Brazil, in the public schools, you know, you have a bit more room for debate, if that makes sense. You know, whereas like in Jamaica per se, there's not that much room, especially in a classroom setting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was like really a shocker to me. You know, like people ask me, okay, what do you think about this topic? You know, like the idea of that, like your education not only being about your diploma, degree, but it's about like your world thoughts and what do you think about your role in society, and you know, what do you think about this thing? You know, what can we do to like make Brazil a different place? You know, so on and so forth. So I think that was a big. That's one of the things that I found different.
You're kind of encouraging you to express your thoughts and develop your
like you know, individual thinking and critical thinking, you know. This is not a bash on the Jamaican system, but I do think that in Jamaica we tend to be very colonial minded when it comes on certain issues, you know. So like we tend to hold on to like certain traditionalist ideologies, and we don't readily, you know, embrace different things, you know. But you know, I love my people same way.
Definitely.
Right.
So you know, I want to get to talking about your business, but there's a few things I want to ask you first. One, the language. We know that Portuguese is the language spoken in Brazil. How did you deal with that? I know you're fluent now.
Right. I mean, so the thing about it is that you know, when we came to Brazil, right, people who come from countries that don't speak Portuguese as their native language, we go to Portuguese school for a year, right? That year is basically used as basically it helps us to culturally immerse ourselves, you know, basically a warm up before we actually get into university, right? And one of the catches, right, to this opportunity that the embassy provides, the Brazilian embassy provides, is that you have to pass a Portuguese test. And it's called Self-Brass, you know, the name of the Portuguese test. And if you don't pass that, you don't get into school. So that's a catch.
This is after you have gotten to Brazil, right? Or
no. That's already established before you board the plane, before you sign up. That's explained to you. Like when you get the scholarship, that's phase one, or opportunity. That's phase one, right? Phase two is you study in the country for a year.
Okay.
And pass a Portuguese test. If not, you don't get to go to school.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So that year, I spent that year in Brasilia, right, at the University of Brasilia. Right. So yeah, for me it was so it wasn't very hard because we were studying 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. You know, it was like full on school, cultural immersion. So like after like about 3 months, I was speaking Portuguese.
Okay.
After a month, you're saying words. After 2, you're, piecing together. Like after 3-4 months, you're like you're medium level fluent, and by the end of the year, you're speaking fine. But obviously this is like, now you have a difference between like the formal Portuguese and like everyday Portuguese. I didn't really learn the everyday Portuguese until I moved to Sao Paulo.
And how does how does speaking Portuguese,
right,
learning how to speak Portuguese, differ from learning how to write Portuguese? Because I'm guessing that is a different, No,
writing is actually the easiest part.
It's easier. Okay.
Yeah, one of the easiest parts is reading, writing, right? Speaking, then listening.
Okay.
Listening. When I say listening, I'm not talking about like me and you having a conversation where I'm reading your facial expressions, you're seeing my hand movements and stuff like that. I'm like having a phone conversation where all you have is the words coming into my mouth and my intonations. So that for me was the hardest part.
It was the hardest part.
Reading was easy, writing was easy, right? Speaking was the third hardest thing on the list, and listening and having a phone conversation. When you reach a point where you can have a phone conversation in a language, that's good. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because I know some Spanish, and I can speak it relatively decent, but I have a hard time understanding it. And I felt like normally it would be the other way around, because I had a friend from Cuba.
Understanding what, the written or the spoken?
Understanding when someone speaks to me, yes.
Okay.
Because I know people who actually understands Spanish when someone speaks it to them, but they can't speak it back. So I was under the impression that understanding it was easier than speaking it. But when I learned it myself, I found that speaking it was easier than understanding it.
No, all right. So the thing is, like, the truth is, if you can't reply in the language, you don't really understand the language. Like you're piecing together things, and this happened to me. You're piecing together things based on the context, based on the facial expression. People are, you're pointing, stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, you can have an idea, because that's actually the first phase. You kind of have to understand the understanding aspect before you can even speak, right? So, so yeah, that's relatively, I think, easy. But if you can't reply, you don't really fully understand the language as yet, because there are certain things that are going to be lost. You might understand the gist of it, the overall story, but you're not really understanding certain details.
The details of it, exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
I agree.
Because it's not only about understanding the words as well when you talk about language, right? You're talking about understanding the context of the words. So for if let's say someone dies, it's different from you saying someone died, or someone passed away. Like, or in Jamaica, somebody dead, like
it means the same thing, but you still
it's the same thing, but it's different. So like, depending on the word, you may understand the context that somebody died or passed on, but you may not understand the subtle messages that person is trying to convey to you by using the word passed and not using the word died, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I definitely understand.
You get my question?
Yeah. I feel that way. I feel it, because sometimes someone would talk to me and I get the gist of what they're saying, but it's like sometimes I'm second guessing myself. is my interpretation of what they said really what they're saying, or you know?
Right. No, man, you can get the gist of it. That's the first step, you know, like getting the gist of it, because you know you have to start somewhere. But yeah, the idea is to understand the words. You know what I mean?
So I want to talk about two very popular things that people are curious about Brazil.
Right.
Women and soccer.
Okay.
So, what can you say about the women there? Like, the perception is that it's you know, Brazil has some beautiful women. So, what?
I mean, no doubt. I mean, I may be biased because, to be quite honest, my adult life is Brazilian. Mm-hmm. You know, like I left Jamaica at about like 19, right? And now I'm an adult. I'm 32. Right. So, you know, my adult life is Brazilian. So obviously some of the things I'm going to say, you know, is take it with a grain of salt because, you know, whatever. So yeah, Brazilian women are beautiful, you know, I personally like them. So what else do you want me to say? You know, they're good looking people.
I remember when we talked one time, you say,
right,
you don't see yourself trying to deal with any other type of woman because you know you just love them like that.
No, I mean it's because like you culturally when you've been here for a certain amount of time, you culturally integrate, you know, and there's certain cultural differences with you know, Brazilians that, for example, like a Jamaican or someone in the US, you know, it's different stuff, you know. So like it's not saying that necessarily that Brazilian women are superior, right, or are inferior. It's just that culturally speaking, that's what I'm accustomed to.
Right.
You know.
And you're pretty satisfied with that.
Right. So and you said if it's what was the other question? If it was a free for all?
No, I was saying football.
Football, right.
What? Because I remember when we spoke, you were saying how different Brazilian football culture is from Jamaica. Because like in Jamaica, you know, even though we have our own local Premier League, we watch the Champions League, we watch the English Premier League.
Right.
But in Brazil, it's not necessarily like that.
Yeah, because the thing about it is like Jamaica is a dot, literally. You know, Jamaica is very small, you know, so which means that, or it's very hard for us to have a fully developed league, if that makes sense, you know, because essentially it's really like, you know, like neighborhoods, you know.
Right, yeah.
Right. Brazil, you're talking about like, once again, the 5th largest country in the world, you know, you're talking about 200 million people, right? So you have a huge population to stimulate this type of, you know, this type of culture, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, stimulate friendly rivalries, you know, stimulate a history, a long-standing history when it comes on to football or soccer, you know. So yeah, in Brazil, people don't watch international football. Mm-hmm. It's fully local, you know. And depending, and to be honest, it's state or regional as well. Mm-hmm. You know, for example, like somebody in Sao Paulo isn't necessarily watching what's going on in like Bahia, in the northeast of Brazil. You know, you're watching, you're keeping your thing local. You know, like in Sao Paulo, you might probably watch a game going on in Rio, mm-hmm. but the state of Rio, that is, not the city, the mm-hmm. state. But it's, you know, it's regional. You know what I mean? People don't really care. Like, so, you know, Brazil is one of those things where they produce good players, but those players get shipped off to Europe or wherever. It's like, okay, next. Like everyone's still focused. You know what I'm saying? Like people don't really follow the players itself. You're not loyal to the players itself. You're loyal to the team. You know, people with tattoos, you know, and like football can get you hurt in Brazil. Yeah. Like,
I noticed.
Yeah, people take it serious. Like, you're, for example, like if someone's baby is born, you know, the baby can't even talk, but the baby have on a shirt, a jersey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you have like these themes, you know, and it's one of those things where people like fathers pass down the team to their sons and, you know, daughters, and, you know, people take it serious, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could have go on and on, but because I know it is when I was in Rio, you know, I had to be careful who I said I supported because even though they knew I was a tourist, they still asked me which team I support. You know?
Yeah, that's a tip. Yeah, that's one of the first questions people ask. You know, so much so that I had to choose my team. I wasn't even in Sao Paulo for like 3 days. I had to choose a team. So like I supported the Corinthians team, and at that time I didn't really know anything about the team. It's just that I was hanging around with people from Corinth that liked the team. I was like, you know, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, so that's how it all started. But yeah, well, football it's trust me, like football it's very powerful in Brazil. Very powerful. It can mean a difference with elections. It can mess up the economy. Like it's very influential, you know.
Right. Cool. So let's talk about Jerkys. You know,
right, Jerkys.
I've been you are actually at Jerkys right now, which is your
I'm actually at Jerkys. Right.
And I've been following you on Instagram and seeing some. I will gonna be showing some of your pictures and so on. But you know, you have started the business here in Brazil, and you know, you said there are generally a lot of business opportunities in Brazil and Latin America.
Right.
I remember you said that. But what is Jerkys? Tell us a little bit about your business, Jerkys. What is Jerkys?
Right. So in the beginning you said I own the business, and I'm not actually a business owner. What I am in fact is the CEO of Jerkys, because I don't own Jerkys, right? So we are a business, you know, a food service business, and you know, we have investors, right? You know, I'm a shareholder in Jerkys, but I'm not the owner of Jerkys, if that makes sense, right? So I'm the one in charge of Jerkys. I act on behalf of, you know, all the investors involved and myself as well, but I act on behalf of the conglomerate, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's what I do. So Jerkys, just so you can understand, that Jerkys is Brazil's first Caribbean Jamaican business that sells food, right? Where Jamaican at the moment, our business is constructed into 3 areas, really, 3 departments. We have a delivery service, we have the restaurant, which I'm in, and we have a B2B service, right, which we've recently started developing. But that's basically what we are. So we specialize in jerk chicken, right, jerk cuisine. And yeah, we're the first company in Brazil to offer this to the Brazilians, right, to the Brazilian population, which is very exciting because, you know, I feel I think we're doing something that's never been done before, you know, in such a big country. Right, so we're talking about over 200 million people. You know, have never tried jerk chicken before. You know, they've never tried like rice and peas before. You know, so it's very exciting. So that's what we are. You know, yeah.
So I hear you saying, and I know I asked you this already.
Right.
You would say Brazil has a big market for Jamaican food or Jamaican cuisine.
Yes, if marketed properly, yes, definitely there's a big market, because the thing is, Brazilian food is not that different from Jamaican food, right? The difference is really in the preparation and the seasoning. That's really where the difference really occurs, preparation and seasoning. So essentially, our menu at Jerkys, you know, we chose specific things from Jamaican cuisine that would intersect with the Brazilian cuisine. So for example, rice and peas, right? Brazilians eat rice daily, they eat beans daily, right? So they don't eat the type of beans that we use in rice and peas, but it's still a bean nonetheless, right? Which means that it wasn't a huge jump to say, hey, try some rice and peas. You know, Brazilians eat chicken, right? They've never had jerk chicken, but they eat a lot of barbecue. They eat a lot, which we call churrasco in Brazil. And they eat a lot of chicken, right? And meat. So it wasn't a huge jump to say, hey, try this jerk seasoned chicken. So we chose those items by design as a way to introduce Brazilians to something that's new, if that makes sense. You know? And so far, it's been working.
It's been working.
Right.
So I guess it's the reception to the food, you know,
right,
has been positive.
Yeah, people love it. People love it because it's once again it's creating a dimension, another dimension to something that they're familiar with.
Right.
You know, so like a man probably look at it like, oh, this is just a piece of chicken. And then he bites into it and he's like, wow, what is this? You know what I mean? The thing that's very special about Jamaican cuisine or West Indian cuisine is that we're very daring when it comes on to spices. We mix things that traditionally, you know, may not even, if you say it to somebody, we put this, they're like, wait, how that work? Right? That's not supposed to work.
Yeah.
But when you mix it, it gives a flavor that's so unique and so different. And I think jerk chicken is jerk is one of embodies that, you know what I mean? So like if you know what goes into jerk seasoning, right, you're like, okay, that shouldn't work, but it works, you know? So yeah, so that's basically it.
Yeah, I it's funny how much people associate jerk chicken with Jamaica. I literally had a friend of mine last week ask me what he needs to do to make jerk chicken. You know, it's like you know, people want to know.
No, the thing is,
people want to
right, because the thing is like it's jerk chicken is just chicken flavored with jerk seasoning. You know, when you really break it down, you know, it's something that's a lot more. How can I put it? It's a lot more. It's a lot more democratic, if that makes sense. You know, almost every society eats chicken. Right now, for example, let's say let's talk about like curry goat. I love curry goat. But for example, in Brazil, people don't eat goat unless you're talking about specific regions in Brazil. But as a general population, right, especially an urban population like a Sao Paulo, right, people eat goat, right?
They would want to try something like that here.
Right. So what I'm saying is that it's the reason why jerk takes such full takes a front seat is that it's easy to explain. It's there for ackee and saltfish. Yes, that's our national dish. But how much people know what ackee is? You know, you have to explain too much. Now you said chicken, that's some jerk season, Jamaican jerk season, or some chicken, you slap that on a grill. You know, like barbecue is the oldest culinary art. Like as soon as we get fire, as soon as human beings discovered fire, they're like, yo, slap that, let's put that on some fire, you know, on a stick. And that was it, you know. So it's just relatively easy to explain. So that's the reason why, in my opinion, jerk has taken the forefront when it comes on to like identifiable national identity. Let's call it that.
Yeah, a lot of people definitely. So how has it been going with the pandemic now? I mean, you know, are you taking people inside? Are you doing delivery?
Right. I mean, so the thing is, so in Sao Paulo, right? There are cycles, right? So the state will shut down, then will open again, and shut down again. That really throws business off because it can't make certain plans. It throws clients off as well, you know, because clients, they, you know, like people don't like inconsistencies. You know? And so that definitely throws them off. And yeah, it's bad for business in general. People lose jobs, you know, people spend their money different. That's a fact. So like, you know, because of the people, even though they're employed, they think they're thinking a bit more along the lines, okay, how long am I going to be employed for? You know, just, you know, hold on a bit more to my money. Let's buy at the supermarket, so on and so forth. So, you know, the pandemic has definitely caused that. It's been hard for us, very hard. You know, but we're hanging in there, you know, which actually, like I said earlier, which led us to fast forward in our project or B2B project, right? Which we're going to be entering into retailers in Brazil, right? With our jerk dry rub or jerk seasonings or jerk sauces, you know, and other products that we sell at Jerkys that people like, you know. So yeah, so that's our new project at the moment, you know. So hopefully that should be finished by the end of this year, right? So we can start by the end of this year, you know.
If people want to follow you and, you know, find out what's going on about Jerk,
right,
where can they find you?
Instagram is best. It would be Jerkys Oficial, right? That's in Portuguese, so it's with one F, right? So so yeah, that's where it's best for people to find me. Or you can email at jerkysoficial@gmail.com. Yeah.
Okay, I'll definitely post it up for you.
Right.
Just winding down, I just have a few more questions, or really one more question actually. And it's about the cost of living in Brazil.
Brazil, right.
Someone thinking of moving to Brazil, you know, taking advantage of some of the wonderful opportunities you just talked about. What is that looking like? What like in terms of you know, your cost of living in a month, you know, your rent, your food, you know.
Right. So so Brazil is cheap. Even by Jamaican standards, Brazil is cheap. I spend a lot less money in Brazil than I spend in Jamaica. Right.
Hear that, Jamaicans.
Right. It's cheaper than the US as well. You know, speaking, it's funny because I had a client, we had a customer that came in and she went to Jamaica, right? And she's been to many countries in the world. And she actually said this to me. She's Brazilian. She's like, the most expensive trip I've ever taken was a trip to Jamaica.
Wow.
Yes, so that's the most expensive place she's ever been to. She never spent so much money yet, you know.
So it's getting more expensive. I have to be honest.
Right. So in Brazil, listen, if you're able to passively make $1,000 American dollars, obviously you're converting this to reais every month, every time you spend it, right? You're living middle class. Because that's like with 1,000, you're already middle class, right? With 1,000, with 2,000, you're up there. You know, with 3,000, you're living good. A month of disposable income, of course. You're living very, very, very good. Like Brazil it's cheaper for you to eat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right. So it's easy for you to eat healthy. It's a lot cheaper. Right. What else? Food. So this one of the advantages that Brazil has is that Brazil consumes a lot of local food. So Brazil feeds itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Which is different from like Jamaica where we import a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So like I would say 98% of what we consume in Brazil is what we call indústria brasileira, which means Brazilian made. Right. So things tend to be a bit cheaper, especially when it comes down to fruits and vegetables, right? Rent is relatively cheap as well. Now, when I say cheap, I'm saying cheap if you're coming from the US, right? If you're coming from a place where you're making foreign currency. Now, for the typical Brazilian that lives here, the reality is different. But a foreigner, right? Yes, the lifestyle is a lot cheaper than you would find in the US. And does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And that also translates to like opening businesses as well. Certain things are cheaper in Brazil, right?
Lower barriers to entry.
You said what?
Lower barriers to entry, like
right. So you have lower barriers to entry. Your money goes further things are cheaper, right? And that's it. And that was one of the things that I said earlier, that I feel as though Jamaicans should, you know, like take a look at, because because we have, I feel as though the West Indies in general, we have a lot of experiences, a lot of products that Brazilians would gravitate to.
Consume, yeah.
Right? Would consume, right? And that's one of the reasons why Jerkys is just one of our projects, right? It's actually the first project off the shelf, right? But as a conglomerate, right, the idea is that we are invested in bringing West Indian experiences. It could be either entertainment or culinary, but mainly culinary, right, to Brazil, so that people can partake in it in a way that, you know, Brazilians can understand. Because in a sense, you just simply transplant something from Jamaica the way it is, or something from Barbados the way it is, and put it in Brazil, and it's going to work. That's not how it works. It has to be molded, it has to be adapted, you know, and that's what we kind of specialize in, you know, because we've been here for a long time. And, you know, so that's really what our idea is, you know, having a series of different restaurants, series of different experiences to offer to the population. So I really think that West Indians should take a look at this side of the world.
I mean, I agree. I definitely agree. It's, you know, a little known fact about Brazil is that it's larger than the lower 48 of the United States, meaning the US,
yes, it is,
minus Alaska and all of
Alaska, right. It's big.
So there's a lot to experience there, you know.
Right.
Awesome there.
Right.
People are friendly. You get to learn a different language. It's it's cheaper than living in Jamaica, believe it or not.
Right, it is.
So, you know, that, you know, it's a lot to, I think it's definitely looking at.
And just the size of the population itself, because, you know, you're looking at Sao Paulo. I don't remember how much millions of people, but it's over 10 million people, you know, relatively small space, right? So when it comes out, like from the business standpoint, that's a market that, you know, like Jamaica only has like what, 2.8 million?
Yeah.
Right. So like, you know,
it must be 3 million by now, since I was in.
Yeah, about 3 million, right? But I'm just saying that Sao Paulo, it's a lot of people. So like, for example, like if whatever you do business-wise, if it takes off in the city of Sao Paulo, you're already financially in a good place.
Right.
People talking about state, take something getting big on a state level. Just city level, you're in a good space. You know, imagine state, imagine regional, imagine nationwide.
Yeah.
You know, it's a huge market, you know.
So that's great, man. Awesome. I'm definitely, you know, glad are proud to see what you're doing, because
right.
definitely bringing Jamaica to a different part of the world in a very positive way. So we're gonna wrap up now. And just want to ask you one more question. Is there anything unique that we haven't talked about Brazil that you would like to share with us, that you think we can benefit from learning?
I guess one of the lingering things that getting back to the question that you spoke about the woman here, right? I think one of the things that a lot of men, they come here with this idea, this overly sexualized idea of the country, which you know, is not true. You know, it's I guess because of language barrier and just seeing imagery, you obviously, you know, all of the men, they interpret things based on their reality, right? Where they're coming from. But yeah, some people come here thinking Brazilian women are like, it's a free for all and whatever and stuff like that. And that is not the case. You know, even though people wear bikinis, you know, like thong bikinis on the beach, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are overly sexual, you know, which quite the contrary, to be quite honest, because Brazil is a highly traditionalist. I don't even know if that's even a word, but traditional society, moralist, society, you know, which I'm not saying that's a good thing, you know, but it's very different. So yeah, like people, the women here are just like anywhere else. They want to be treated well. They want to be spoken to with respect. You know, they want to get equal pay. You know, for the equal work, stuff like that. You know, so it's not different. You know, so I really would want people, especially men, to like get that imagery out of your head, right? Because it's on a cycle. You know what I mean? It's like here is a regular country, just like everywhere else. You know, so the same amount of respect that a woman would want in the US or Jamaica, they want here as well. You know? So yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the time you spent here with us and telling us your experience in Brazil from your perspective. And yeah. Thank you once again, everyone, for watching, and we hope you'll take away a lot of positivity from this interview. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thanks.